Hi there. You're watching Reddit Confessions. And this is the story of how I found out my marriage died one very ordinary Tuesday, the night my wife didn't come home on purpose. Let me take you right to the moment. I was sitting on the couch, still wearing my work boots, eating a bowl of cereal at 9:46 p.m. Yes, cereal for dinner. Don't judge. That's what you do when your wife says she'll be late again. And again. And again. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. I was staring at the front door. Listening. Hoping to hear the sound of keys. Maybe even an exhausted laugh. But there was nothing. Just the crunch of stale flakes and the hum of the refrigerator that's been making a weird noise for 3 months, a noise I've mentioned 3 times, by the way, but she says it's fine. At 10:03 p.m. I got the text. Don't wait up. Crashing at Mark's. We've got an early start. I read it again. Then again. Then I blinked 5 times because I thought maybe it would change. It didn't. I didn't text back. I didn't even throw my phone. That would have required energy I didn't have anymore. Instead, I sat there, gripping the remote like it was her wrist I wanted answers from. Crashing at Mark's. Let me tell you what's worse than being cheated on. It's knowing, not guessing, not suspecting, but knowing, that the person you love wanted you to feel it. The burn. The jealousy. The humiliation. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't drunk and stupid. It was planned. Engineered. The next morning, she walked in with her hair in a braid she never wears at home. She tossed her bag by the door like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in our marriage the night before. She kissed me on the forehead. The forehead. Like I was a child. Or worse, a roommate. I asked, calmly. Did you have fun? She didn't answer right away. Just opened the fridge, took out the oat milk, and said. Don't start. Don't start. Not, it's not what you think. Not, I'm sorry. Not even a lie. That's when I knew it wasn't about Mark. It was about me. She wanted to hurt me, intentionally. Like I was some villain in a story she rewrote when I wasn't looking. And her staying at his place. That was the climax she couldn't wait to act out. But here's the twist no one saw coming, not her, not me, not even Mark. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I did something else. Something that made her jaw drop 3 days later when she saw what was taped to the bathroom mirror. But I'll get to that in part 2. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dim kitchen for hours with the lights off, watching the microwave clock blink like it knew something I didn't. 2:11 a.m., 3:48 a.m., 5:02 a.m. I just sat there, replaying her text over and over in my mind. Don't wait up. Crashing at Mark's. Not even a fake excuse. No attempt to hide it. It was like she wanted me to read between the lines, except there weren't even lines anymore. Just a blunt, emotionless sentence. Like a punch to the chest delivered in lowercase letters. You know what's worse than being cheated on? Being emotionally discarded. Being treated like a dusty piece of furniture in the corner of a room. You're still technically there, but no one really sees you anymore. That's what it felt like. Like I'd been emotionally evicted without warning. She came home at 7:23 a.m. I remember because I heard the garage door creak open while I was sitting in the laundry room. Not crying. Not yet. Just sitting there on the floor next to the dryer, holding her wedding ring. Not because she gave it to me, but because I found it the day before on the bathroom counter. Like she didn't even care to put it back on before leaving the house. That was her statement, I guess. Silent. Cruel. She strolled into the kitchen like it was a regular Thursday. She was humming something, I don't even remember the tune, but it made my stomach turn. I stayed silent. I watched from the hallway. She pulled out the oat milk, made a protein shake, and started scrolling her phone. No guilt. No second glances. Nothing. That's when it hit me, she was done. Not thinking about leaving, not confused. No, she had emotionally exited this marriage months ago. This wasn't a slip-up or a moment of weakness. This was strategy. Her move in a twisted emotional game that I didn't even realize we were playing. I stepped into the kitchen slowly and said her name. She jumped slightly, like I startled her. Not because I was loud, but because she didn't expect me to be there. Like I wasn't part of her equation anymore. You stayed with him, I said. Not a question. Just a statement, like saying the sky is blue or I exist, both of which, at that moment, felt equally irrelevant. Her eyes narrowed for a second. Then she gave me this tired look, like I was the one causing drama. Harlan, don't be dramatic. We had a late brainstorm session, and I passed out on the couch. That's it. I didn't respond. Not immediately. I just looked at her, really looked. Something about her was different. The way she moved. The way she wasn't even trying to lie convincingly. That's when I realized, she wasn't hiding it because she wanted me to know. I heard you laugh on the phone with him yesterday, I said softly. It was a different laugh. One you used to use with me. She blinked. I think that hit her more than anything else I could have said. But even then, she didn't apologize. She just said, I needed a break. Maybe if you paid more attention instead of obsessing over things that don't matter, we wouldn't be here. There it was. The deflection. The insult. The twist of the knife. But I stayed calm. That's the part that got her. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just nodded and walked past her. She followed me with her eyes, maybe expecting me to blow up. But I didn't. I went into the bathroom, opened the medicine cabinet, took out a small envelope, and taped it to the mirror. Then I walked out the front door. She didn't open it right away. But when she finally did, I know it rattled her more than anything I could have said. Inside the envelope was a receipt, from a locksmith. And a sticky note with 3 words. I heard everything. Because I did. The night before, while she was crashing at Mark's, she forgot to turn off her Bluetooth connection to the car. Her phone automatically synced to our shared cloud. And I heard everything. When I say I heard everything, I mean it in the most literal, most gut-twisting sense imaginable. I didn't even realize it at first. That morning, after I taped the envelope to the mirror and left the house, I drove aimlessly for hours. I didn't know where to go, so I parked in the lot behind the old hardware store, the one where I used to buy bolts and brackets and things I thought would somehow fix a crumbling home. I sat there staring at my phone, scrolling through nothing, heart racing like I'd run a marathon barefoot. And then, out of habit, I opened the Cloud app. I almost closed it right away, until I saw the most recent audio file. Timestamp, 2:38 a.m. File name, bt_connected_autorec. My hands went ice cold. She'd played music through the car stereo, connected via Bluetooth to her phone. Her phone, synced to our shared cloud. My wife, who clearly forgot that convenience has consequences. I tapped on the file. The audio began with some muffled shuffling and laughter. At first, it was just background noise. Then her voice came through, clear, vibrant, and not like the woman who'd handed me a cold protein shake that morning without blinking. She was giggling. Flirtatiously. Almost high school giddy. And then his voice, Mark's, deep, overly confident, chuckling right alongside her. So, are you really going through with it? I already did, she said. You stayed here to hurt him? He's been emotionally checked out for years. This just resets the power dynamic. I paused the audio there. I couldn't listen to more. Not yet. My ears were ringing, and my mouth had gone dry. Resets the power dynamic. Was I some kind of experiment to her? A character in a game of emotional manipulation? I didn't even cry. That's the part that scared me. I didn't break down. I just sat there feeling like someone had scooped out my insides and replaced them with static. Eventually, I hit play again. So what now? Mark asked. Now I let him stew. Let him feel what I've felt. And then? Then maybe. I'll decide if he's worth saving. That was the moment the numbness gave way to something else. Not rage. Not even sadness. Just this raw clarity, like someone wiped the fog off a mirror I'd been staring into for years. She didn't just cheat. She planned a psychological ambush. One designed not to destroy me physically, but to dismantle me emotionally. And the thing is, it was working. When I came home that night, she was on the couch, watching some crime docuseries like nothing had happened. She looked up and said, "You okay?" Like she didn't just emotionally waterboard me with indifference and smug detachment. I nodded. Said I was tired. She didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't ask about the envelope. She probably assumed it was some pathetic attempt at drama. And maybe it was, but the difference now was that I knew. I had proof. I slept in the guest room that night. If you can call staring at the ceiling for 6 hours, sleep. I kept hearing her voice, that cold little laugh in the recording. The way she weaponized her words. The way she knew exactly what would break me, and chose to do it anyway. And here's the terrifying part, she wasn't done. I could feel it. This was just her opening move. But so help me, I wouldn't sit there and let her play me anymore. I had the recording. I had the truth. And I had a plan. It's weird what your brain chooses to notice when your life's burning down. That Friday morning, she stood at the kitchen counter cutting bananas into her oatmeal like she wasn't the villain of the story. Her hand moved so casually, so rhythmically, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't emotionally decapitated me with a single sentence and a night at another man's apartment. I watched her sprinkle cinnamon on top like she was auditioning for a wholesome cooking show. And me? I stood behind her in the hallway, phone in my hand, audio recording open, thumb hovering over play. I could have done it. I could have let it play on speaker and watched her world implode. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I needed more. Not revenge, understanding. I needed to know how deep this betrayal ran. Was this a one-time performance, or had the curtain been open for months, maybe years, and I just never looked up? She turned, noticed me, and smiled. Smiled. Want some? She asked, motioning to her breakfast like we were still teammates, still living under the same roof and same reality. I forced a smile back. Already ate, I lied. We sat across from each other for 10 minutes. I nursed a cup of black coffee while she scrolled Instagram and made passive observations about office drama. She mentioned Mark. Twice. Casually. Like it didn't mean anything. Like his name didn't now live rent-free in the part of my brain reserved for nightmares. Then she said something that nearly made me drop the mug. I'm going to his cabin next weekend. Company trip. It's nothing major. Just a creative reset. A cabin. With Mark. I blinked. Is it, everyone going? She didn't even flinch. No. Just the senior project leads. We need to brainstorm away from the office. Get some clarity, you know. Clarity. I excused myself and went back into the guest room, heart racing. I opened the recording again and this time, I listened to all of it, every second. Every whisper. Every mocking laugh. Every disgusting detail. Not just that she stayed there, not just that she wanted me to hurt, but the way she talked about me. Like I was a child. A burden. A footnote in her story. He used to be interesting. Now he just watches me. Like I'm a ghost he's still hoping will come back. I paused the audio. She said that. Word for word. And it was true, in a way. I had been watching her. Watching our marriage disintegrate while pretending the structure still held. And now, I wasn't even sure who I was married to anymore. That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I didn't sleep at all. I started going through everything, her emails, her calendar, even her Slack logs. We used to share a computer before she got a work laptop. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I already had that. I was looking for motive. For the story under the story. And I found it, buried in the corner of a notes app titled Reset Plan. It was a checklist. Reclaim space in relationship. Make him feel distant. Test emotional reaction to overnight stay. Observe recovery time. There it was. Black and white. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. She had been studying me. This wasn't a spontaneous betrayal. This was designed. A slow, deliberate push down the stairs of our relationship while she documented how many steps it would take before I broke something. And I realized something then, something cold, terrifying, and clarifying. She didn't cheat to escape me. She betrayed me to study me. To see what I would do. To measure my breaking point. So I gave her something she hadn't planned for. That night, when she was asleep, I left the house. Not with rage. Not with chaos. I left with a purpose. Because if she wanted to observe what happened when I cracked. She was about to find out exactly what it looks like when the man you emotionally dissected gets one step ahead. I didn't leave town. I didn't vanish. I didn't even pack a bag. I just disappeared from her routine, quietly and completely, and let the silence scream louder than any accusation I could have made. No note. No text. No confrontation. Just absence. I turned off my phone, signed out of every shared app, and drove to a cheap extended-stay motel on the edge of town. A place with flickering hallway lights, vending machines that still took coins, and carpets that hadn't been cleaned since the Bush administration. It was perfect. Because I didn't want comfort. I wanted clarity. And distance, not just physical, but emotional, was the only thing that might give it to me. That night, I lay on a hard mattress staring at a water-stained ceiling while the hum of the air conditioner rattled my thoughts. And I thought about her, not just who she was now, but who she'd become. I kept replaying the checklist I found in her phone. Reclaim space. Test reaction. Observe. It wasn't just betrayal. It was psychological warfare. A cold-blooded experiment. And the more I sat in that room, the more I realized something else. She wasn't just trying to break me. She wanted me to explode. To yell. To accuse. To lose control. Because if I did, she could flip the story. She could become the victim. Harlan's unstable. He's paranoid. He's the one making things toxic. But now. Now I'd taken her narrative away from her, and replaced it with a vacuum. And vacuums are terrifying when you're used to control. The next morning, I went completely dark on social media. Changed my passwords. Locked her out of my location sharing. I even blocked her number, not because I was angry, but because I wanted to see what she'd do when she couldn't monitor me. Because for once, she wasn't the one pulling the strings. And I could already feel her panic growing. By noon that day, I checked the old iPad we never used, one still connected to our shared email. She'd sent me 4 messages already. The subject lines alone told me everything. Where are you? You're overreacting. We need to talk. Are you seriously doing this? Not a single, I'm sorry. Not even a fake one. Just concerned that she had lost control. But the fifth message, that's when I knew she was spiraling. Subject line, if you walk away now, you'll destroy everything. I read that one over and over. And I realized she wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing her version of me. The obedient, loyal, predictable husband who would always be there, no matter how many times she stepped on his heart just to hear it crack. She thought I'd never leave. That I'd always be waiting with open arms and lowered eyes. And honestly, I might have. A few weeks ago. But now. Now I saw the game. And I was done being the piece she sacrificed for her emotional strategy. Around 3 p.m., I sent one email. Just one. Subject, receipt. Attachment, the full audio recording of her night at Mark's. Message, I won't say anything. I won't make a scene. But I won't be part of this anymore. Then I turned off the iPad. And the silence that followed was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was peaceful. Painful. But peaceful. I didn't check for a response. Instead, I went to the mirror above the motel sink, looked at myself, the shell of a man she thought she could manipulate, and whispered the first honest words I'd spoken out loud in days. You survived. And the man looking back. He didn't look broken anymore. He looked ready. The knock came at 6:12 p.m. I wasn't surprised. In fact, I'd been expecting it, not because she knew where I was, but because I knew Trina better than she thought. I knew she wouldn't just let me walk away. Not without a final performance. She couldn't resist a stage. And my silence? That was the spotlight. I stayed quiet, sitting on the edge of the motel bed, the TV playing some mindless game show in the background. She knocked again. Harder this time. Then I heard her voice through the door, muffled but sharp. Harlan, I know you're in there. She was right. But I let her wait. When I finally opened the door, I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside. She walked in like she owned the room, wearing this faux concerned expression, her arms crossed like she was the one hurt. She glanced around at the stained carpet, the cracked lampshade, the dented mini-fridge. This is where you ran to, she said, half disgusted, half amused. Seriously? I still didn't speak. She turned to face me, jaw tight. So you just ghost me? Block me? Send me a recording like some kind of revenge move? What are you even trying to prove? I finally met her eyes. I'm not proving anything. I'm just done being studied. She flinched. Just a little. But it was there. The smallest crack in her composure. Is that what this is about? She snapped. That stupid checklist? I didn't move. I didn't blink. I wanted her to sit in it. To feel the weight of being exposed. Do you even know what it's like, she continued, voice rising, to live with someone who disappears inside himself every single day? Who stopped trying to connect years ago? And there it was. Her story. The story she'd been crafting to justify what she did. The story where I was emotionally unavailable. Distant. Boring. Convenient. Predictable. A man so detached that her betrayal was somehow logical, even noble. You could have told me, I said quietly. You could have tried to fix things. Or left. But instead, you stayed and planned an emotional dissection. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. I pulled out my phone, tapped play on the recording again, not loud, just enough for the room to fill with the sound of her laughter. Her voice, late at night, curled up on Mark's couch, planning my slow collapse like it was a creative project. She froze. I paused it halfway through. I don't care about Mark, I told her. You could have cheated with anyone. It's not the betrayal that broke me, it's that you wanted me to suffer. That you treated our marriage like an experiment. Like I was the subject and you were writing a thesis on how long it takes a loyal man to snap. She looked away then, staring at the wall like it would swallow her. I was drowning too, Harlan, she finally said. But I didn't know how to say it anymore. So you let me drown louder, I replied. There was a long pause. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, not next to me, but far enough away that it felt symbolic. Her eyes were red. Maybe from tears. Maybe from frustration. I didn't care anymore. I came to fix this, she whispered. I nodded. Too late. That hit her. Not like a slap. More like the final nail on a coffin she'd been building one quiet decision at a time. She stood up, hands shaking just slightly, and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she turned and said something I'll never forget. You used to be soft. Gentle. I thought you'd beg. That's why this worked. But now, you're different. And that's scarier than anything I did. Then she left. And you know what? She was right. Because I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. It had been 4 days since she walked out of that motel room. 4 days of no messages. No calls. No last-minute speeches. I expected at least one final attempt, a dramatic email, a nostalgic memory tossed into the mix to pull me back. But she went silent. And somehow, that unnerved me more than anything else. On the 5th morning, I went home. Not because I forgave her. Not because I missed her. But because something told me the storm hadn't passed, it had just changed shape. The house felt different when I stepped through the door. Not just because it was quiet. It was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The eerie kind. Like walking into a room that had been staged, not lived in. Her shoes were lined up too neatly. The kitchen was spotless. The fridge had exactly 2 items, a bottle of white wine and a container of blueberries, both things I hate. I walked down the hallway and froze when I saw the bedroom door. It was half open. Inside, the bed was made. A single envelope sat in the center of it. My name written across the front in her handwriting, but sloppier than usual, like her hand had been shaking. I didn't open it right away. I just sat on the edge of the bed, holding it, trying to guess which version of her I was about to hear from, the strategist or the woman I used to wake up next to with my hand resting against hers under the blanket. Eventually, I tore it open. The letter wasn't long. Just 3 paragraphs. The first one was her attempt at honesty, how she felt stuck, invisible, like I had turned into furniture in my own home. How I never noticed when she changed her perfume. How I didn't compliment her when she bought new dresses. It read more like a list of passive grievances than an explanation. The second paragraph was darker. She admitted that Mark wasn't her first escape. That there had been another before him. One I never noticed. One she never mentioned. She didn't say his name, only that it happened during one of her team retreats 2 years ago. She wrote it casually, like she was confessing to stealing gum in high school, not admitting to dismantling a marriage from the inside out while pretending to love me at the dinner table. But it was the third paragraph that really stuck with me. I thought hurting you would make me feel something. Anything. But it didn't. It just made everything quieter. Like killing the only voice that ever told me I was still a good person. I sat there for a long time, staring at those lines. She hadn't just tried to wound me, she tried to redefine herself through my pain. And when it didn't work, she was left hollow. I left the letter on the bed and walked into the garage. The strangest part. Her car was still there. And that's when it hit me. She hadn't left to move on. She was waiting. Waiting to see if I would crawl back to her. If I would look her in the eyes and say, "We can fix this," like a man desperate to hold on to a foundation that no longer existed. But I didn't go looking for her. I didn't call. I didn't text. I simply changed the locks that afternoon and took her name off the utility bills. Cold? Maybe. But sometimes healing begins when you stop leaving space for someone who only came back to see if they still had power over you. That evening, I went into the closet, pulled out the small box of old photos she'd kept hidden in the back, the ones from our early years, when everything was raw and hopeful. I flipped through them slowly. In one of the photos, we were at the beach. She was wearing this ridiculous sun hat. I was squinting against the light, clearly mid-sentence. She looked genuinely happy. I placed that photo face down in the box and closed it. Some things are worth remembering. But not worth reliving. I no longer wanted her apology. I wanted my peace. A month passed. And in that month, I expected a dozen different outcomes. A dramatic apology. A desperate breakdown. Maybe even the stereotypical, "please come back," text at 2 a.m. But what I got, was silence. And honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. In the quiet that followed the chaos, I started rebuilding, not the marriage, not the house, me. The version of myself I had lost along the way. The guy who used to read until 3 a.m., just because he couldn't put the book down. The guy who painted the garage walls a horrible shade of blue because it made him laugh. The guy who wasn't constantly calculating how to keep someone else emotionally afloat while slowly drowning himself. Trina never came back for her things. I ended up boxing them and leaving them in her sister's garage. There was no final conversation. No closure speech. No fireworks. Just a clean line drawn through the middle of our story, and for once, I didn't feel the urge to write her back into the next chapter. Instead, I started going to the gym again. Not to get revenge or glow up. Just to feel human. I cooked real meals, the kind that took more than one pan. I watched dumb sitcoms and actually laughed. I even signed up for a woodworking class at the community center, where I made a completely lopsided stool that now proudly sits in my living room. But the biggest shift. I stopped asking myself what I did wrong. And started asking what I wanted next. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's mood. I wasn't tiptoeing through my own life. I wasn't waiting. I was moving forward. And that's when it hit me, she didn't destroy me. She freed me. Freed me from a version of love that only worked when I was smaller, quieter, more convenient. Freed me to rediscover the kind of peace that doesn't need permission. So, if you're watching this and you feel like your world is shattering, like someone you trusted just cut the ground out from under you, breathe. You're not broken. You're becoming. And what's coming next might be better than anything you thought you were losing. Thanks for being here, and thank you for following this story on Reddit Confessions. Now it's your turn. Have you ever been betrayed, and somehow came out stronger on the other side? Drop your story in the comments below. We want to hear it. Because sometimes healing starts with just being heard. And if this story helped you in any way, like, share, and subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more powerful true stories that remind us, we're never as alone as we think.